And it's great to see you all. Let's begin. Please mute yourselves.
Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah. Sing out loud and sing out proud. Lift your voices up in song and know we all belong. With each breath we praise the name. You and I are much the same. Together we exist as one. We exist as one. Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah. Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah. Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah. Havana Shira, Shir Hallelujah.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and welcome to our Lower East Side themed Shabbat and weekend. We just thought we'd warm things up a bit and get us out on the road, at least virtually. So we're going to be doing that. We've already started last night with a virtual visit to the Tenement Museum in New York. And this, in fact, behind me is one of the rooms of the Rogaszewski House on Orchard Street. So welcome to Orchard Street. And we'll talk a little about this a little later on. But once again, I ask that people mute themselves. And we are going to continue with our service with Yedid Nefesh.
Yedid Nefesh Av HaRachaman Mishoch Avdach Eretz Onach Yarut Avdach Kemo Ayal Yishtachaveh Mul Hadarach Ki Erav Lo Yedidutach Minofet Suf V'chol Tam Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai Dai Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai Dai Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai Dai Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Yedidai Dai 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 Dai.
And let's continue. Lechu Neranina.
Lechu Neranina LaAdonai Naria Litzo Yishenu. Lechu Neranina LaAdonai Naria Litzo Yishenu. Nikadma Fana Betoda Bizmirot Naria Lo. Nikadma Fana Betoda Bizmirot Naria Lo. Lechu Neranina LaAdonai Naria Litzo Yishenu. Lechu Neranina LaAdonai Naria Litzo Yishenu. Nikadma Fana Betoda בזמירות נריע לו, נקדמה פניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו. כי אל גדול, אדוני, הוא מלך גדול על כל אלוהים, כי אל גדול, אדוני, הוא מלך גדול על כל אלוהים, כי אל גדול, אדוני, הוא מלך גדול על כל אלוהים. לכו נרננה לאדוני, נריע לצוישנו. לכו נרננה לאדוני, נריע לצוישנו. נקדמה פניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו. נקדמה פניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו. 40 שנה קופדור, ואומרם תוי לבבם, והם לא ידעו דרכי. אשר נשברתי ואפי, אם יבואו אל מנוחתי.
And we'll continue with another excerpt from one of the Psalms on page 16, if you have your own Siddur at home, or Zarua Latzadik. And we continue as we go through some of these wonderful psalms leading up to Lecha Dodi. And we'll come to Havu Ladonai, which is on page 21.
Havu Ladonai b'nei Elim, Havu Ladonai kavod va'oz, Havu Ladonai kavod shemo, Hishtachavu Ladonai behadrat kodesh, Kol Adonai al hamayim, El hakavod hirim, Adonai al mayim Rabim, Kol Adonai bakoach, Kol Adonai behadar, Kol Adonai שובר ארזים, וישבר אדוני את ארזי הלבנון, וירקידם כמו עגל לבנון וסיריון, כמו בין רמים. קול אדוני חוצה להבות אש, קול אדוני יכיל מדבר, יכיל אדוני מדבר קדש, קול אדוני יהולך איילות, ויחשוף יערות, ובהיכלו כולו אומר כבוד. אדוני למבוי ישב, וישב אדוני מלך לעולם, אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
So Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's great. We have so many people on board tonight. And as mentioned at the beginning, some just came on since then. This is a themed Shabbat as we are focusing on the immigrant experience in the Lower East Side, not just today, but this whole week. So you can see behind me, my background is the apartment of the Rogashevskys, which is part of the Tenement Museum on Orchard Street. Our 7th and 8th graders were there yesterday, virtually. We had a wonderful tour virtually. It was virtually a tour, but it was totally wonderful. And we learned a lot about them. So we're gonna just do some things tonight that will get us out of the norm. For one thing, some of you are eating deli as we speak, which is sort of obnoxious to do during services, but no, it's okay. It's okay. You're at home. It's fine. Please continue eating. Just that little bit of mustard. You want to just sort of get that off your, yeah, okay. In fact, I would love for you to put in your chat, in the chat, what you are eating. If you ordered from Ben's, many of our congregants did, and what you recommend. So that's the first thing I want to put in your chat. But we're going to be reading from the Bintel Brief tonight. This is the original Dear Abby in Yiddish from the Jewish Forward at the turn of the century, which is around the time the family was in this apartment. And this was a great opportunity as Jews became acclimated to America to learn the ways of their new land. And not just to pick up some of the culture, but the language itself, but also something that were so different from the old country. So here's one thing from the Bintel Brief. From 1906. I am a young man of 21. I have a 17-year-old cousin, and she and her parents would like me to marry her. I like the girl. She's educated, American-born, not bad-looking, but she's quite small. That is the drawback. For her age, she is very short, and I happen to be tall. So when we walk down the street together, people look at us as a poorly matched couple. Another thing, she is very religious, and I am a free thinker. I ask you, esteemed editor, could this lead to an unpleasant life if we were to marry? I wait impatiently for your answer. You can see they asked anything that was on their minds. They emptied their souls. So I'd like you to all play the role of Abraham Kahan, the editor of the Forward, and answer the question. Answer how you would answer the Dear Abby of your day, of that day. In the meantime, we're going to move ahead to Lecha Dodi, and of course we'll do the first and last two verses. When we get to the final verse, go out and welcome the Shabbat bride by opening your door.
Oh, Lecha Dodi, לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו לתפארת ולתהילה, או לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונחה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם ניסוחה, סוף מעשה מחשבה תחילה, או לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי, ואת אדוני תעריצי. היד איש בהן פרצי, ונשמחה ונגילה, או לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, וואו לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. וואו לך דודי, לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה. וואו לך דודי.
Let's take a deep breath. And I love the answers that I've seen so far. First of all, try the chicken pot pie. Highly recommended by Debbie Goldberg. And Ronnie, I love short and tall married, doesn't matter, we're happy. Well, that's actually sort of what they said. The answer from 1906, remember, this is 1906, love conquers all. This was dramatically new. Think of Yenta the matchmaker. Many such couples live happily, and it is better, okay, for the man to be taller than the woman shorter, not the opposite. All right, don't shoot the messenger. People are accustomed to seeing the man more developed than the woman. People stare, let them stare. Also, the fact that the girl is religious and the man is not can be overcome if he has enough influence on her. Okay, so I'm going to just let that go, but I want to show you. So this is the room that I'm in. And just to go around, this is an apartment. Actually, this is a fairly upper class apartment on Orchard Street, because some of the places we've been to in the past have been much smaller or had many more people. This was the main room, the main gathering area, although 3 people slept, I should say, on this couch. They would put boxes out to lengthen it. And you can see that they had a challah and they had candlesticks. And the wallpaper, which they refurbished a few years ago, like I guess maybe in the 90s, came back. I mean, they got the original wallpaper, and it became so popular that the company gave it the name Rogashevsky Red for the family that lived there. So you can see that it's quite a place. But anyway, I'll give you one more. Here we go. So here's a young man of 25. This is 1908. He just met a fine girl. They would talk about their love life. They had no one else to ask. The fault, she has a fault that keeps him from marrying her. It's that she has a dimple in her chin. And it is said that people who have this lose their first husband or wife. At first, I laughed at the idea, but later it began to bother me. I began to observe people with dimpled chins and found out that their first husbands or wives really had died prematurely. I got so interested in this that whenever I see someone with this defect, I ask about it immediately, and I find out that some of the men have lost their first wives and some of the women's first husbands are dead. This upset me so much I don't know what to do. I can't leave my sweetheart. I love her very much, but I'm afraid to marry her lest I die because of the dimple. I've questioned many people. Some say it's true. Others laugh at the idea. Perhaps you too will laugh at me for being such a fool and believing such nonsense, but I cannot rest until I hear your opinion about it. I want to add that my sweetheart knows nothing about this. Respectfully, the unhappy fool who's so maybe unhappy, but definitely a fool to put it in the newspaper that absolutely everyone reads. So the answer, the tragedy is not that the girl has a dimple in her chin, but that some people have a screw loose in their heads. I won't read the rest of it. Instead, let's continue, and we will express our gratitude, and we should feel very grateful as we approach Pesach, despite all of the things that challenge us. The Shabbat song.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, ולזמר לשמך עליון, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, על עשור ועל נבל, על היגיון בכינור. מה גדלו מעשיך מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. מה גדלו מעשיך מאוד עמקו מחשבותיך. צדיק כתמר יפרח, כארז בבנון יסגר, שתולים בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. עוד ינובו בשיבה, דשנים ורעננים יהיו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני תורי ולא עוולת בו. הללויה,
Hallelujah.
הללויה,
Hallelujah.
הללויה.
So as we now continue on to the Ma'ariv service, I invite you to, we only got one comment about food, the chicken pot pie. So I'm sure other people have ordered from Ben's and have something to recommend. So please continue to do that. But also, if you have a favorite Lower East Side memory or place to visit, put that in there. And let's continue now with the Baruch Hu as we rise in body or spirit. And as we wonder at the marvels of nature and the miracle of how much lighter it is right now than it was last Friday night at this time, let's read together. Baruch atah Adonai, our God, sovereign of time and space. You completed your work of creation on the seventh day, calling this day from one evening to the next the Holy Shabbat, and gave this day of rest in all its holiness to your people Israel, creator of day and night, rolling light before darkness and darkness from light, making day pass and bringing on the evening, distinguishing day from night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Living and ever-present God, may you rule, be with us forever and ever. Baruch atah Adonai, who brings each evening's dusk.
ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים.
אהבת עולם.
נשיח בחוקיך, אהבת
ותגה יומם ולילה אהבת עולם, אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת, אהבת עולם, אהבת עולם, בית ישראל, עמך אהבת. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
שמע.
שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
And on the left side of the page, loving life in its mysterious source with all our heart, with all our spirit, our senses and strength, we take upon ourselves and into ourselves these promises to care for the earth and those who live upon it, to pursue justice and peace, to love kindness and compassion. We will teach this to our children throughout the passage of the day, as we dwell in our homes and as we go on our journeys, from the time we rise until we fall asleep. May our actions be faithful to our words, that our children's children may live to know truth and kindness have embraced, and peace and justice have kissed, and are one.
Adonai Elohechem Emet.
And let's continue on page 42. I'm sorry, page 44.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל, לכענו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש,
נורא
תהילות עושה פלא נורא תהילות עושה פלא מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי ענו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני,
Shemo.
גאל ישראל.
Amen.
Oh, it's so nice to hear voices back. It was
Yes, it
so
is.
nice. And nice to hear young voices back too, and older voices back. But music to my ears. Beautiful.
So, and we come now to the prayer for peace and security, with keeping in mind the violence that occurred this week, the horrible killings in the Atlanta area, and the fears that so many people have of hate. Let's keep that in mind as we pray for peace. Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Sometimes I lay under the moon and I thank God I'm breathing, and then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know one day it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war and our children will play. One day, one day, one day, one day, one day,
one day,
one day. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom ve'hamidenu malkeinu l'chaim. U'shmor tzedenu vo'enu l'chaim u'l'shalom me'ata ve'ad olam, u'feros aleinu sukat shlomecha, baruch ata Adonai
Shemo.
הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. One day,
one day,
one day,
one day,
one day, one day,
one day,
one day,
one day.
one day, one day.
Let's continue with Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם.
Oti leolam.
אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש,
Shabbat ויהי
שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Olam.
Olam.
There we go. So now we'll take a few moments to reflect, and if anyone would like to put any names or initials into the chat for healing. I have to say some really, really interesting and nice comments. Everyone loves the Lower East Side in the chat. Great suggestions too. I'm also putting in there the PDF of the Lev Shalem prayer book if you would like to do the Amida in more traditional fashion on your own.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי והגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני
So let's continue talking a little about the Lower East Side and the immigrant experience. It's 1896. Yankel Bogovnik, a Russian Jew, emigrated to the United States 3 years earlier and has settled where many of his background have settled, namely on Hester Street on the Lower East Side in New York City. He's assimilated to American life. He's learned English. He's anglicized his name from Yankel to Jake. He's shaved off his beard. He's working at a $12 a week job as a seamster. And he's using that money to bring his wife Gittel and his son Yosela to America from Russia. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, regardless, he's fallen in love with another woman, a dancer named Mamie Fine. Nonetheless, he's excited when he hears that Gittel and Yosela are indeed coming to America, And he's so thrilled that they're going to be there. But then when he meets them at Ellis Island, he's not as happy because Giddle doesn't look American. She doesn't look like Mamie, and she has trouble assimilating as quickly as he'd like. He shows the world that he's really happy and everything is fine at home with Giddle, maybe tells Mamie something different. But the question is, can their marriage survive these differences? That is the plot line of the 1975 gem of a film called Hester Street by Joan Micklin Silver. And we're celebrating her legacy this weekend along with the Lower East Side. Now, she was born in Omaha. It's about as far from the shtetl as you can get. But her parents were Russian Jewish immigrants. And they probably were a lot like Yankel, who became Jake. She graduated from Omaha Central High School in 1952 and then St. Lawrence in 56. Then she married actually a rabbi's son of Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver of Cleveland, one of the great rabbis of the mid-20th century. And you can read the rest of her biography on your own, including the fact that she passed away this past New Year's Eve. And it was then that I decided maybe we really should celebrate her life at some point soon. So this was the perfect opportunity. She's known best for the two films that focus on the Lower East Side, Crossing Delancey, which we're going to discuss tomorrow, and Hester Street. That's tomorrow evening. Our movie club is going to be having a talk about Crossing Delancey. But so I want to focus a little more on the immigrant experience itself with a little side of Hester Street. You know, the refugee experience is core to understanding both the American and Jewish civilizations. The author of The Uprooted, Oscar Handlin, wrote it in the 60s. He was a Harvard professor. He talked about wanting to write a history of immigrants in America, and then he came to understand, he wrote this in his book, I discovered that the immigrants were American history. And he was onto something. And that book, by the way, was widely credited with influencing and liberalizing American attitudes toward immigration. And in 1965, the Immigration and Naturalization Act abolished an earlier quota system based on national origin and established a new immigration policy that reunited immigrant families and attracted skilled labor to the United States. This quota system dated back to the 20s, was directed especially at that time against Jews, resulting in many being stranded, millions in the old country, where they would be butchered by the Nazis 15 years later. But that year, 1965, you might recall the Voting Rights Act, same time, they were linked arm in arm. There really is a connection between welcoming immigrants and welcoming fellow Americans fully into the democratic process. And that is recurring right now, this year in Congress. Just this week, Dreamers Act was passed by the House. So I want to talk a little about Hester Street and show you some of the people that it involved. You might recall it, especially, well, this is the Lower East Side. But here, this was one of the seminal scenes, one of the important scenes of the film, where we see Stephen Keats, who played Jake. You can see he shaved his beard, and he's just welcomed his wife, Carol Kane Giddle, who's wearing her shadel, wearing her wig. By the way, she is amazing in this film, and she went on to do some really great things in movies. You might remember her from some, I think, Mel Brooks stuff, Woody Allen, just, you know, she's there. Anyway, when they came, they saw America as the golden Medina, the golden land, the land of eternal promise, where you could reinvent yourself, be whoever you wanted to be. And that is the premise propelling Hester Street. By the way, it's based on a story by Abraham Kahn, the founder of the Jewish Forward, of the Bintel briefs that I read before. So when they came to America, the old roles were reversed. People like Jake shaved their beards and mocked the yeshiva bachers, who wasted their time, as they put it, on Talmud study. Those who survived and learned in this strange, even in the steerage on the way over, they had to adapt. And they were not the ones who towed the line, who just kept the ways of the old country. This is from Oscar Handlin's book. The crossing involved a startling reversal of roles, a radical shift in attitudes. The qualities that were desirable in the good peasant, and we might add, in non-peasant Jews also, were not those conducive to success in the transition. Neighborliness, obedience, respect, and status were valueless among the masses that struggled for space on the way. They succeeded who put aside the old preconceptions, pushed in, and took care of themselves. Thus uprooted, they found themselves in a prolonged state of crisis. As a result, they reached their new homes exhausted, worn out physically by lack of rest, by poor food, by the constant strain of close, cramped quarters, worn out emotionally by the succession of new situations that had crowded in upon them. And the end was only the dead weariness of an excess of novel sensations. So it was a tough trip. And they had to leave, the Jews had to adapt. The immigrant had to adapt. And there was a common line, it's found in Hester Street. It's one of the famous lines you would hear. When you come to America, you leave God behind. You leave Shabbat behind. But some were able to adapt. And I want to show you something that we saw in our virtual trip to the Immigrant Museum yesterday, and something that I've seen there before. So first of all, this wonderful picture of the shirtwaist factory that one of the family worked in. You can see the crowded working conditions. And anyway, of course, the famous Triangle Fire occurred in about 1910. I think it was 1910 or 1911. But this is something we saw in the house. We saw a table with challah on the table for Shabbat. Also, this beautiful dish that was used for making cholent, the traditional Shabbat meal. Was a family heirloom, actually belonged to that family. But you see on the right, you see a prayer for candlelighting. And I'm just going to read it because it's a little hard for you to see. I ask you, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that you should guard and shelter me, my husband, and my children from Sabbath and holiday desecration. Send us to our livelihood in pleasure and not in sorrow. And we shall by no means, due to livelihood, not be able to make the Sabbath or the holidays weekly, and we shall be able to rest on the holy days and shall serve you with all our hearts. So basically a couple of things. First of all, that challah was not from 1910. It was actually plastic, just in case you were wondering. But the thing that amazes me about that special candle blessing, is that they were not able to refrain from working. And they felt that it was the worst thing in the world that they were having to give up Shabbat. But they understood that change becomes the only constant for the immigrant. They had to adapt in order to continue in some way their Jewish heritage. And we learned that the Rogashevsky mother, the one who stayed home, insisted that everyone be home from work before dinner for Friday night, so that they would at least have that bit of Shabbat. That despite all the things that were keeping them from having a complete Shabbat, they had that. And I thought of that. I thought of the adaptation that we've had to do this year, that we're doing right now, in struggling to keep Shabbat. And our times are not at all that different from theirs. Meanwhile, these uprooted, they adapted. Yosela, the little boy, becomes Joey. Jake teaches him to hit a baseball, a regular Yankee. And Giddel refuses to uncover her hair, but when she finally does, it doesn't end well. The marriage doesn't survive, little spoiler there, but the characters do, very much. And that is Joan Micklin Silver's message. In fact, Gittel and Bernstein, in their own way, Bernstein is the yeshiva bacher, they find a way not only to survive, but to thrive without sacrificing their Jewish heritage. In the end, Gittel remains Gittel, but she insists that Yosela be called Joey. So here we are. We've been adrift in steerage for the past year. We've become refugees of sorts. We've become completely uprooted from our former lives. No wonder people who are normally very calm and centered, we're all acting a little bit meshuggah right now. The lessons of the Lower East Side experience are manifold for us right now, but here are the most important two that are paramount. One, we were strangers, so we must treat the stranger with love and respect, whether they be a new immigrant, a refugee seeking a home here, or someone who's been cast out as a stranger despite living on these shores for 400 years. And two, we need to adapt but not lose our moorings. Exactly what happened a century ago is, as I said, happening right now. With our reconfigured Shabbat lockdown worship, we're doing things that Jake could never have imagined. Jake would never have said, turn on your cell phones on Shabbat. There will come a time when the compromises that we've made technologically out of necessity for Shabbat observance will need to be reconsidered, even as that observance continues to evolve. And as we move our way forward, we can take inspiration from Joan Micklin Silver, a real pioneer among female filmmakers who faced all the misogyny that Hollywood had to offer. She wrote in 1979, I had such blatantly sexist things said to me by studio executives when I started, the most outstanding of which was, feature films are very expensive to mount and to distribute, and women directors are one more problem we don't need. You know, we haven't come that far from the answer given in the foreword in 1906. But she refused to give into it. Joan Micklin Silver prevailed, and we can celebrate her now. She embodies the diaspora experience in a nutshell, the experience of the uprooted. And let's think of this as we go into our weekend and we celebrate not only this weekend, the Lower East Side, but we celebrate the refugee experience of Egypt a week from tomorrow night on Pesach. And let's continue now with the Kiddush as we rise in body or spirit.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron ma'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי בנו בחרת, ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו, ברוך אתה אדוני. מקדש השבת.
Amen. And let's continue with Aleinu.
And for Aleinu, I'd like to welcome Sarah Gilbert. She is going to lead us.
And Sarah deserves a spotlight. So when she starts singing, I'll do that. Or you can do that, Cantor. Here we go.
לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Yesha koach, Sarah.
Oh,
That was
beautiful.
lovely. That was wonderful. And so, sadly, our congregation has lost people this week. We are saddened at the passing of Herb Kahn, our past president, and also Lou Abbey, the father of Debbie Morgenthaler, and a former congregant, Paul Josephson, who was very influential in our community and did so much for the temple in leadership position. Sorry, Jake. We also recall in loving memory this coming week, David Annis, Beth Bourne Bennett, Ruth Kolner, Samuel Derman, Philip Diamond, Solomon Feinberg, Hyman Ferber, Shelley Freund, Faye Freed, Mitchell Garber, Sonia Geffner, Benjamin Gold, Emil Greenberg, Jose Halpern, William Harris, Pearl Harold, Ida Kasten Hoffman, Nathan Holtzman, George Kahn, Maxine Kaplan, Sadie Klein, Saul Quarton, Barney Lapidus, Victor Lapidus, Hilda Lerner, Bernice Lieberman, Andrew Lipner, Aaron Mechanic, Richard Miles, Anna Miloslavsky, Lena Perlman, Jeremy Presser, Frank Rosner, Leatrice Sander, Saul Savransky, Edward Warren Schwartz, Yetta Schwartz, Julius Schenker, Irving Paul Sigardel, Irving Silver, Dorothy Silverstone, Joan Sobel, Samuel Stern, Harry Alex Stujenki, Lee Sverdlov, Harry Tomsky, Simon Tonopolsky, Richard Tershin. Those who mourn and those who recall yahrzeit, now feel free to unmute and join together in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah v'yalma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael v'agalat u'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach v'yalam olmei al maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbahar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha brichu liela mikol birchata v'kushbechata v'nechemata damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'chayim aleinu al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. V'aseh shalom v'romav v'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru
Amen.
V'imru, amen. V'imru, amen.
Emily, would you like to give the announcements?
Sure, I would love to. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's nice to see so many people. Oh, I'm spotlighted. Oh, boy.
Hey, you deserve it.
Thanks. It's nice to see so many faces on a
But
Friday
actually, it's
night.
for Abby.
Oh, I know. She's not even here. She's afraid of Zoom. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Emily Klein. I'm a fellow congregant and I'm also the secretary on the Board of Trustees. So I'll just go through some announcements and do some reminders. So quick reminder, if you haven't already done so, you can now sign up for Temple Bethel's second night of Passover Seder on March 28th. It just went out yesterday in the announcements. You can also purchase tickets for the annual Cantors concert, which is on May 2nd. You can, of course, join us tomorrow for Shabbat morning service via Zoom again with Rabbi Hammerman and cantorial soloist Katie Kaplan for Parshat Vayikra. This weekend, we also have Shabbat Bim Bam going on tomorrow at 11 a.m. For any fellow children within the congregation, 5 or younger, and siblings that are older as well. That will be led by Natasha and Steve. And then just a reminder that we still have weekday minions Sunday through Friday at 1 p.m. via Zoom. And just I'll give a brief overview of the schedule coming up for Passover and Shabbat services. So for Passover day 1, there will be a service on Sunday, March 28th at 10 a.m. Monday, March 29th, 10 a.m., Passover day 2. And then Friday, April 2nd at 6 p.m., there'll be Kabbalat Shabbat. Saturday, April 3rd at 10 a.m., we'll have Shabbat and Passover day 7. And then on Sunday, on April 4th at 10 a.m., there'll be Passover day 8 service as well. And Zoom links will be sent out next week during the Shabbat announcements for all of those services. You can also request Rabbi Hammerman to sell your chametz by completing an online form that was also sent out yesterday and returning it to the rabbi by March 26th. Let's see what else we have. This weekend, tomorrow, as Rabbi Hammerman was saying before, we have the Crossing Delancey movie discussion going on tomorrow night at 9 p.m. The links were sent as well, but I think people are sending it in the chat. And then on Monday, we have Coffee with Rabbi Ginsburg, a Passover discussion, also via Zoom at 1:30 p.m. And just a reminder that we do have all these exciting Temple Bethel clubs that were sent out. So take a look when you have a chance. And if something looks of interest to you, please sign up. Thanks. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and thanks, Emily. So if anyone also would like to participate, we talk a lot about immigration, and we are, as a congregation, joined in an effort to encourage those in Congress to have a positive attitude toward refugees, especially. We're part of the highest effort to do that, and I put a link in with my email that I sent out today, because we are trying to have a number from our congregation sort of amplify that message through Highest, who's doing this on a national basis. And we haven't had a lot who have signed this sort of petition from our congregation yet. So it'd be great if you could get onto that and do that at some point soon. Any other announcements?
I see Fran has her hand up.
Yeah, I can't see hands right now. Hi, Fran.
Sorry. Yeah.
Go ahead, just talk.
I've got 2 things. First of all, there is another club meeting on Monday, and at 7 o'clock, the links again are in the bulletin. The speaker is our own Betsy Kempner. She's going to be talking about clinical trials for the STEM club, and everyone's invited. This is a no obligation club. Everybody should come and listen to Betsy. She's very excited and been preparing. And the other thing is that after a very long gestation, the Temple cookbook is in the office. So everybody's entitled to a free copy, and for people who bought extras, that you can pick up both your free ones and your extra ones. And we're going to be giving them out Thursday during Passover food give out.
And I'm going to add one thing too. I'm not sure, Emily, if you mentioned on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday evening at 7:30, I'm going to be having a Temple Bethel Singers Gathering, and everyone is welcome. Anyone who loves to sing, wants to sing, misses singing, misses hearing our voices in harmony. This is not an obligation to anything beyond coming for one session to sing with us. just share some ideas. I'm going to be teaching some choral techniques, some breathing exercises, and we're going to have a way to come together and enjoy one another and learn some new melodies, and just look forward to when we'll be able to hear our voices together in harmony again.
What time is that, Katie?
It's at 7:30 on Wednesday evening, and the link will be in announcements as well. So
okay, and by the way, I had a look at the cookbook today. Thank you for dropping one in my box, Fran. I love the way you chose the word gestation. I just thought that was really perfect for your profession. But anyway, that cookbook has been in the oven, and it is now emerging, and it really is amazing. I'm vegetarian. I don't eat much of what's in there, but it looks amazing. There are a lot of veggie recipes too. So
there are many veggie recipes in there.
And if you're cooking something special for Pesach, come to our second night Seder. Of course, there's no cost. We want reservations because we want to sort of know who's going to be there, and it's already growing. Invite your family from all over. They can Zoom in and you can meet them at our Seder. And we won't be doing the meal together because that really doesn't make a lot of sense, but we'll be doing a 90-minute, pretty full, fairly traditional, but conversational and creative Zoom Seder like we did last year, which was very successful. So just sign up for it. And we need people who would volunteer to take parts, to do readings, so that we can spread the wealth and really make it as fun as we can. This is our second annual, but last annual Zoom Pesach Seder, at least from what I hope. So any other announcements? We are good.
Is it
Yes,
possible?
Marsha.
Is it possible to pick up the cookbooks when we pick up the food for Passover?
Yeah, yeah.
So how do we who do we let know that we want to do it?
I'm going to be there. Oh, don't worry.
She's signing.
I'll be there.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. So let's conclude. And I think there's something especially different and special.
especially different and special. We're going to conclude today with Yigdal. It's been a long time, and I would love to lead you in that. So, Rabbi, maybe you can share again, because there's a lot of words in case people wanted to go along.
Yep, I will do that.
It's on page 62.
Right now I have it. I'm
Okay.
going to get it up there. Okay.
All right. יגדל אלוהים חי וישתבח, נמצא ואין עת אל מציאותו.
אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו.
אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו.
קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון אין ראשית לראשיתו.
הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורך גדולתו ומלכותו.
שפע נבואתו נתנו, אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו.
לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את תמונתו.
תורת אמס נתן לים האוהב, על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו.
לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו.
סופר יודע ששורנו, מביט בסוף דבר בקדמתו.
גומל לאיש חסד כמפעלו, נותן רשע רק רשעתו.
ישלח לקץ ימים משיחנו, לקדוש הקץ ישועתו.
Metim Yahayel Birov Chasto Baruch Adei Ad Shem Tehilato
Metim Yechael Berov Chasto Baruch Adei Ad Shem
Shem Tehilato.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Have a wonderful week.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom. Hugs and
Shabbat
hugs.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
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 Hi, Shelby.
Shabbat Shalom, Mara.
Shabbat Shalom, Judy.
Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yes, Lisa, spring is coming. Yahoo!
Well, Soph, I didn't see you there before.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Hi,
I
Sophie.
didn't realize that was you behind that name.
Hi, Sophie.
Hi.
Hi.
Sophie, I think you were on our last visit to the Tenement Museum, right? Didn't you go with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I get to see Sophie 2 days in a row. Wow. I miss you.
Hey, Marge.